Hi there, Dre here reviewing No More Heroes 1 and 2 for the PC. For those of you that don't know, the No More Heroes franchise has been around since 2007 and was originally a Nintendo Wii exclusive. Then, here we are in 2021 and the two games are finally available for PC players. I remember seeing gameplay footage of No More Heroes back when G4 TV still aired on television, and I was really intrigued by what I saw. I always wanted to play these games when I was a kid, but I didn't have access to a Wii console back then. But now, I can finally play it on Steam. So let's see if these games still hold up despite its age. Let's get right into it. Before I get to the story and gameplay, it's important for the buyer to know that the PC port of No More Heroes 1 and 2 has no mouse and keyboard support. The only way you can play this game is with a controller, but even that has its issues. So far, I've been seeing a lot of complaints regarding that the game doesn't recognize Switch controllers, DualShock 4 and 5 controllers, or even the Steam controller. The only controller that these two games recognize for gameplay are Xbox controllers. So, sorry for the ones who don't have access to that. Some have resorted to downloading third-party software to actually play the game properly. Thankfully, I configured my PlayStation 4 controller to be recognized as an Xbox controller years ago, so I didn't run into any controller issues. The two ports also have a lot of technical issues. I've experienced constant frame rate drops during combat, frame rate stutters while driving, getting stuck in loading screens, and constant game crashes. On top of that, for some reason, the game is capped at 60 FPS, and you don't have the ability to adjust the resolution and graphics in the options menu. Speaking of graphics, I was kind of hoping for reworked textures for the PC, but it looks like they just upscaled the original assets from the Wii port. For some people, this may be a turnoff because it shows the game's age, but I can also see some people won't mind this, like myself. Also, some of the achievements for No More Heroes 1 is bugged. Even if you meet the requirements for unlocking an achievement, the game doesn't register it, which can add frustration for those completionists out there. This port needs a massive patch ASAP, otherwise just get the Switch version. Look, these games are very good. The thing is, it's a bad PC port and it feels more like an awful repackaged emulator than a legit PC version. But hopefully these issues can be fixed in the near future. If the devs won't fix this, hopefully modders do. Now we can talk about the story and gameplay. Let's start off with No More Heroes 1. The story follows Travis Touchdown, yes that's his actual name, an everyday typical otaku. One day, after winning a beam katana in an internet auction, he was left with no money. She then meets Sylvia Crystal and offers Travis a hitman job to kill Helter Skelter. Travis accepts the job and was able to assassinate his target. This results in Travis earning him the 11th ranked assassin of the UAA. Feeling motivated, Travis sets out to become the #1 assassin in the United States. That's about it. That's the entire premise of the story. Pretty simple and very easy to follow. The plot may be oversimplified, but the real highlight of this game is the over-the-top hack-and-slash gameplay. The fight mechanics are a mix of samurai swordplay and lucha libre wrestling. On paper, this sounds weird, but the developers were able to execute this idea with jaw-dropping results. I mean, check out this clip. Pretty cool, right? It looked cool 14 years ago, and it still looks cool today. The fast-paced combat is stylish, violent, and flashy that goes great with the game's otaku punk rock aesthetic. What I also like about the gameplay is how satisfying it feels to slice and dice your enemies with hilariously over-the-top violence that it will make you want to look for even more bad guys to kill. Speaking of enemies, one of the best parts of No More Heroes 1 are the boss fights. What I like about these bosses are they have a lot of variety and have so much character to them despite only a few minutes of screen time, and I absolutely love it. Each battle is memorable and feels original even if some fights don't measure up. The only downside to this is you have to pay a large fee to fight these bosses. How do you earn money? by doing a lot of odd jobs throughout the game's world. Though side jobs are just a bunch of mini-games, you'll find yourself frequently returning to them for quick cash. For some people, this grind could get very tedious, but at least this gives you the opportunity to explore the city of Santa Destroy. To be honest, the open world doesn't feel finished. Some areas even look a bit bland, but at the same time, the unfinished aesthetic of Santa Destroy has a unique vibe to it. In addition to that, driving around the city is, well, I have no other way to say this, but the driving in this game feels like ass. Even by 2007 standards, this is unacceptable. The driving feels loose and clunky at the same time, and the devs didn't even bother touching up this issue that was present in the original Wii version. My other gripes for the game is the levels also feel a bit too linear, and their designs, well, they also feel bland as well, but thankfully those issues were overshadowed by the gameplay. The other little things that I want to talk about is the game's artful scene transitions, from loading screens to saving screens that fits the game's overall atmosphere. The menus, UIs, and even the sound effects artistically match the game's overall aesthetic too, and most of them have this 8-bit design which adds charm to the game. The voice performance is also beyond superb, and they did a great job bringing the characters to life. Overall, No More Heroes 1 is a pretty good game, and will definitely make a lasting impression to a lot of gamers. Now, let's move on to No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle. I would describe this game as both a step forward and a step back for the franchise, but I'll get back to that later. The game takes place 3 years after the events of the first game. It's unknown what Travis has been doing for the past 3 years, but at least the game gave a good reason why they didn't bother explaining what happened in between games.
I haven't seen you in 3 years, and that's the welcome I get? How about you fill us in on everything that's happened since the last game? We're not gonna be satisfied until you do, right?
Oh, give me a break. There are people starting from the sequel who don't care about continuity, you know. Besides, it would take forever if I recapped every detail of your fall from greatness. Players would skip it. It's so boring.
Well, I guess you got a point there.
I just love how self-aware this game is. It knows that all of us just wants to go straight to the action. But going back to the story, this time Travis is on a revenge quest after the CEO of Pizza Bat sent men to murder Bishop, Travis's best friend. It also happens that the mastermind of Bishop's death is also the first-ranked assassin in Santa Destroy. In order to avenge Bishop, Travis would have to climb up the assassin ranks once again to get a chance for revenge. The story for this game is a lot more significant this time. It still has its quirky and humorous dialogue, but the plot is noticeably more serious than the first game. As for the gameplay, there are some aspects that were improved upon, but there are some elements that took a step back. Remember the tedious side jobs from the first game? This time it's just optional and you don't have to pay a huge sum of money to fight the bosses anymore. This is what I like about the sequel. It trims down all of the fat and unwanted filler content from the first game so you can get to the good parts quick. The downside to this is that they have completely removed the open world aspect that was present in the first game. The original devs did make a statement years ago that this was done due to player feedback, but it would have been a lot better if they made significant improvements to make exploration a lot more fun. Moving on with the combat system, this time it's a lot more fluid and feels more refined than in the previous game. No More Heroes 2 took what was good in the beam katana swordplay from the first game and they made a few good changes. This time you can now change between different katanas during in-game and no weapon feels better than the other. Each one has its own strengths and weaknesses, making all of them feel viable in combat. My personal favorite is the Rose Nasty. These things are broken, by the way, but in a very fun way. They don't dish out a lot of damage, sure, but these twin katanas are so fast that you can infinitely stun lock enemies until you can drain their health to 0. Also, quick side note, you also get this cool power-up where you can transform into a tiger. Sure, it doesn't make any lick of sense, but holy shit is that awesome. Anyway, there are a few things that I don't like about the new combat system. The first one in my list is the camera. It feels a bit too loose, and I can't switch shoulder cameras, which can make some combat scenarios frustrating, especially in tight environments. Second, is it just me or does fighting regular enemies in this game feel a bit too easy even on the hardest difficulty? This could be just me, but even in my first playthrough the enemies are not as aggressive like in the previous game, but I could be wrong. My third issue are the bosses. Most of them are very forgettable and their screen time is even shorter than in the first game, which makes the fights even less interesting. There's not enough interaction with them, some of the bosses don't have any dialogue at all, most of them don't have character, no hints to what kind of person they used to be, and no lasting impression whatsoever. To me, they're just enemies with beefed up health bars. There are a few exceptions though, like Alice Twilight, Margaret Moonlight, Kimi Howell, and I think that's about it. Even if their fights aren't that great, at least there are a few bosses in this game that are actually memorable. Other things I want to talk about in this game is the soundtrack. At least we get more variety than what we had in the first game, and most of the songs are very catchy. Another good addition in my opinion is that we get to play as Shinobu and Henry, which were bosses from the first game. Even for a brief moment, I thought it was pretty cool to play as the previous bosses from No More Heroes 1. Lastly, despite the game's setbacks, No More Heroes 2 is still one hell of a ride, and I think it's still a good addition to the franchise. My final verdict for both games is if you're a fan of games like Killer 7 or if you're a fan of Suda51 games, this game is definitely a must-buy, just, don't buy it for PC. Again, if you have access to a Nintendo Switch, you're better off playing the games there instead. These games aren't perfect, but it has so much imagination to it, I suggest you give these games a shot when you get the chance. No More Heroes is unlike anything that I've ever played. When it comes to originality and creativity, which is something that AAA games lack these days, No More Heroes definitely shines in that regard. The only thing that's holding the PC ports back are the technical problems that I've mentioned earlier. If the devs somehow fix those issues and they add in mouse and keyboard support, yeah, I'll definitely recommend this game for PC as well. But at the moment, I think it's best you hold on to your cash for now. So you made it to the very end of the video. I hope this review is very informative and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Let me know if you want me to make more game reviews or if there are any games you want me to cover. Feel free to check out my channel, I also make other types of videos, so I hope you watch those as well. Thanks again for watching, and as always, this is Dre, and I'll see you in the Garden of Madness. Take care.